Scott, Richard, welcome to Belgium. You comfortable? Yes. Okay. Before I introduce you to the audience, a couple of rules for this panel discussion. Rule number one, if you disagree, which I hope you do, fighting is allowed. Okay. Rule number two, no weapons. Rule number three, no hostages. Neither. Rule number four, women are always right. And rule number five, we're not going to talk about football, okay? Sorry, Liz, we will win against Ireland anyway on Saturday, so we're not going to talk about football. Okay, introduction. Good morning, everybody, by the way. Liz, you were one of the first employees to join Marketo internationally 5 years ago. Since then, you've helped grow this company from early days startup to being the market-leading marketing cloud platform there is today. What would you do differently looking back 5 years ago, knowing what you know today?
Okay, big question. I think the world of marketing is fascinating, and I often say that marketing has changed more in the 5 years than it did probably in the previous 50, maybe 100. And that pace of change isn't showing any signs of slowing down. We're constantly being asked to take on more channels, more interaction points, etc. And when I joined Marketo 5 years ago, the buzzwords back then, and you know, us marketers, we love our buzzwords, but it was social marketing, content marketing, inbound marketing, and they were all like the next big thing. They were all going to be the panacea to all of our marketing woes. I think the reality is they've all become mainstream now, and all form an important part of a well-mixed marketing strategy. So I think one of the things I've learned is, you know, not to fall in love with the next big thing. Right? That it will become mainstream, and it might be the next big thing. It might be important, but it's not going to solve all of our marketing woes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Richard, welcome. So you have a career that spans consulting, media, technology. So you're the head of in EMEA for a company called Turn. We'll come back to what Turn is later. But if you would go back to the 1990s, to the start of your career, what would be the single point of advice you would give yourself, to your younger self?
Wow, taking myself back to the 1990s. I'd have hair back then for a start. But so what would I say to myself? As a youngster, I would have said, don't spend any money on rent, food, or going out. Just invest in Apple shares. That's probably the first thing. In terms of recommendations to myself, it would be very much around remain curious. So hands up those in the audience that have got children. People have got children? Yeah, most of the audience, that's great. Do you remember when they were about 2 years old? My son was 2 years old. And every time he spoke to me, the first word that came out was, why? Why is it like that? Why is it like this? Why is the sky blue? And he was just very curious. And I found when I first started work, I lost some of that curiosity. So for me, particularly in the industry that we work in, marketing and technology, just remain curious. Always ask the why question. Always look for the next thing.
Okay, thank you. Scott Newman. So you've been at IBM like your whole life, last 17 years?
Yeah, 17 years, yeah.
Yeah. So previously you were the CMO for IBM in Eastern Europe. And right now you got a very exciting role of being the global marketing leader for IBM Watson Internet of Things.
That's right.
Excellent. So let me quick question. What made you make the change from being a CMO to this role?
To the current role. It's a great question. And actually, I'll stay off the previous comment when you're talking about being curious. that's what got me. Right, so my previous job as the chief marketing officer of Central and Eastern Europe was about 29 countries, spanning from Russia and the former Commonwealth independent states all the way down through former Yugoslavia and Turkey. So it was all of IBM, but for a very specific part of the world. Shifting to what is really an exploding area of the industry, the Internet of Things, applying cognitive intelligence, in IBM's case Watson, and doing it at a global level was a completely different change. And I couldn't think of a more exciting place to start jumping into. So, that's really what drove me, was curiosity. Why not?
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you. So, it seems to me, algorithms, they play a more and more important role in everyday life. Just think about Netflix feeding us the right recommendations. Think about how Facebook feed is filtered. So technology is playing a more and more important role, right? So I've actually invited a surprise guest. I've invited Scott Brinker. Scott Brinker is the author of Hacking Marketing, and he's the chief blogger of the Chief Martech blog. And let's hear from Scott. Let's hear what he has to say about the intersection of marketing and technology. And this should start playing now. Any help from the technical team? Okay. Anyway, let's skip that. So the synopsis is that, yes, he thinks technology is playing obviously a more and more important role, that, yes, it's becoming more a science than an art, but we'll still need the gut feeling of marketers in order to remain successful, to remain relevant nowadays. So the question is software eating marketing? If you look at the slides of Chief Martech of Scott Brinker, there's over 4,000 marketing cloud applications available in today's market. So Liz, first question to you. How does a marketer cope with that constant innovation of new applications being available to us? How does a marketer cope with that?
It's a great question, and I think ultimately we have to recognize that we have become the stewards of the customer journey, and being where the customer is at any point in that journey to answer the question that they have. Technology can help us get there, of course, but we also need to make sure that it's integrated. So moving from maybe a single channel or siloed based communication strategy to something that's much more omni-channel and takes into account what the customer is feeding back, what the prospective customer is feeding back, and responding in a meaningful way. Making it feel much more like a real conversation, and that's, I guess, where Watson and other things come in, that it becomes that real conversation as much as possible.
So then, Richard, if you think about this new technology, what does this mean to all the media channels that we have out there as a marketer? What's the consequence of the proliferation of new technologies?
Yeah, so, I think to build on what Liz has said, the technology is there to help. And I'm actually seeing we're moving, it's a pivotal moment actually, we're moving from technology enabling marketing to technology actually empowering marketing. So it is a real change there. So technology is no longer just helping us do things more quickly, it's actually providing some intelligence and really helping us drive that forward. In terms of the media market itself, there's a couple of key things that are changing. The first one is that technology is now enabling and empowering us to not look at individual siloed channels to market. So now you can link your email marketing with your advertising, with your branding, with your outdoor activity, with your TV activity. You can start to bring all of that together through the use of technology so you get a single view of the customer. That's a big change. The second change is that it's altering the way that brands are engaging with their partners in this. So I'm seeing a lot of companies, brands coming to somebody like us and saying, we want to take control of our data, help us do that. whereas in the past, they'd often use an agency to do that. So it's about bringing that control back into the company. This is a slight change for the agency community, because the agency community have now got a real part to play in providing strategy and consulting to those brands about how best to do that, how best to leverage that, how best to take advantage of the data that they're starting to bring on board.
You mentioned agencies. I'm thinking about the advertising space. So our customers are constantly dodging any messages we send at them. Think about ad blocking, for example, as a major trend. Will algorithms or technology provide a solution for that?
Yeah, ad blocking's really a thing of the moment, and I see it's being caused by two things. The first thing is, and I'm not criticizing myself as a consumer, but I want to have free content. I just want to go out and consume the content that I want in the way that I want it. And I actually forget that somehow that content needs to get paid for. And I forget that there's a business model around advertising that publishers use. So that's one point. The second point is that, let's be honest, as advertisers, we've actually produced a lot of, excuse my English, shit ads. We absolutely bombard people with complete rubbish. It's the wrong message at the wrong time to the wrong person. And that's really frustrating. Now, what we can do is we can use technology to really understand and improve that process. So, for example, I've just bought a brand new road bike. I am perfectly the person to target with cycling equipment and do that now. Not a new bike, because I've bought that, but all the bits that go around that. What am I getting? I'm still getting completely rubbish ads targeted at me. By using data, putting the customer at the heart of the message you're trying to get to them, having the right content around that is going to really drive that forward.
So in the end, it comes to knowing your customer. What you said, it's personalizing the message so it becomes relevant, right? So Liz, do you have any examples of companies you think that do a really great job at this?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of examples out there. Companies that have been doing it for a long time and companies that are just starting out. And I totally agree with what Richard said. I think the era of mass communication is gone. We're now into a space where we have to communicate on an individual, personalized basis. You know, the company that always springs to mind in terms of how they personalize it is Amazon. And maybe get a quick show of hands. Who here has ever bought anything on Amazon? Right?
About 1/3. Yeah.
And they've done a really, really good job of understanding not just my previous buying history, but things that I have looked at that I might be interested in, and letting me know when that goes on sale, letting me know when my favorite author has a new book. All of those kind of things, as well as using the data that they have on me and people similar to me to present offers that might be of interest. And the net result of that is that I've spent way more money on Amazon than I ever intended to or expected to. But that's Amazon, and I think the good news story there is the technology they've been using is now available to all of us, right? No matter what size company you now have access to that technology to be able to personalize that experience. We have a small company that we work with called Nice Systems, and they have started personalizing their experiences on their website. And what they found is that web visitors that were presented with personalized content based on what they already knew about that individual or what they could determine about that individual, like their industry and what country they were visiting from, their conversions went up by 5 times. So it's well worth investing in at whatever level you can start.
Any examples you can think of for the Belgian market? You mentioned Amazon. For the Belgian market community, any thoughts of companies you've seen doing this really well?
Well, one that I saw just yesterday was Telenet, and they've done I think it's called a smart video. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong, which was personalized video content. Just really clever, really thoughtful, and from what I can gather, a really effective use of that technology.
Okay, great. So brings me to the next topic. Because you're talking about technology, data, the current state of technology adoption in Belgium. So as the House of Marketing, for 13 years in a row, we've conducted the yearly marketing survey, this time together with Blueview. And this year the topic was all about marketing technology. Now it seems that coming out of the survey, it became clear that marketers struggle to become really content-driven marketers, data-driven marketers. Hence, they don't seem to be able to create a single view of the customer. So keeping up with the constant change of technology, new applications becoming available altogether is proving to be a daunting task for marketers. So Liz, final question to you. What would be your recommendation to the Belgian marketing community to cope with that status quo and fix that?
Okay. All right, I guess I would probably take a three-step approach. The first is understanding the customer journey. And you asked me at the beginning about what 5 years ago and my views now. I think what's changed is that marketers don't determine the customer's journey, customers do. And you can't plan for every possible scenario based on flowcharts and if-then statements. So understanding your customer journey, understand the transitions, and work within that. Provide the content, and provide the conversation pieces and the interaction points to engage people regardless of where they are on their personal journey. The second is about aligning with sales and marketing. And that's everything from getting agreement on definitions, what's a marketing qualified lead, what's a sales accepted lead, what's an opportunity, through all the different stages of the buying cycle. And then putting, if you're going to have this agreement with your sales counterparts to say, I'm only going to send you the hottest leads that are sales ready, well, in return, I need you to follow up with them and within a certain time frame, so putting SLAs in place, etc. And the third aspect of that is changing a bit the language that we use. I think as marketers, we have done ourselves no favors. We've used what I call vanity metrics to go to the board and the CEO and the CFO. We've talked about the number of Facebook likes we have, the number of people we had at an event, how many followers we have on Twitter. So what? Okay? The CFO, the CEO doesn't care. We need to change the conversation, change the language that we're using to be about pipeline and revenue, the things they do care about. And when that happens, it changes the conversation totally. It changes the perception of marketing from being a cost center to marketing being a real revenue driver and being very strategically important to the entire organization. So those three things.
Excellent. Scott, if you look at all those cutting-edge technologies available out there as a marketer, what would be the most striking technology creating most impact for you in the near future?
Well, there's a lot. Who in the audience, their head's spinning in terms of what technology they should be thinking about, what they should be adopting, what they should be trained on? Seriously, I'm the only one confused? Come on. Okay. And I work for IBM, and I'm confused. It's okay. It's okay. For me, it's how do you manage at scale? Right? So, for sales, for one-on-one conversations, you can engage on a personal level and you can connect emotionally. But how do you do that at scale? Right? So that's where we're starting to see a whole range of analytics in the marketing space make that possible. So a really interesting example to play off of what Tina was talking about with Under Armour. So they're also working with IBM to take that one step further. So imagine, you're wearing your gear and you're out for a run and you've embedded technology so the temperature starts to drop and the weave starts to tighten in the shirt that you're wearing to make sure your body doesn't get too cold. But on top of that, it's measuring your vital signs and it's giving you personal information with analytics as a coach. So it's not just, here's the data off your Fitbit and here's your pulse rate. It's been doing this all along your journey as a person, as an athlete, and starting to think about what's the next thing you may want to do. Maybe you should stop. Maybe you don't have another kilometer in you today. And you know, maybe you should be thinking about a different kind of exercise for your next workout, for you, for your optimal performance, not, you know, you 45-year-old male, you know, that weighs, you know, X amount of kilograms, and let's just do an aggregate data. But you, Scott Newman, what would be the next best exercise for you? So that's getting down to a personal level and getting that level of you know, kind of touch and an emotional point of view, and not, you know, kind of, you know, as you said, some of the crap advertising we put out there to just say, gee, I hope somebody likes it. So I think it's that type of deeper algorithm that allows you to get very, very specific to an end customer. That's fundamentally going to change and separate good marketers from great marketers.
So you mentioned algorithm, which is the key question for this session. Is marketing becoming an algorithm in that case?
Yes and no. So there are elements of what we do as marketers that can be made easier. There are, you know, media buys and platforms that you can use to automate more and more of what is more just basic rudimentary things that you do. What does that do? That frees you and your team up to be thinking more on the creative side. Is this really the right way to approach it? Are we connecting at an emotional level? Are we truly empathizing with who we're trying to market to? So it's not technology or marketing. It's you know, the technology and marketing. It's better informed marketing. I mean, you know, who here has had that tricky conversation with your CEO that says, well, you know, we're having budget discussions for next year. What am I going to get for that marketing? Who's had that, right?
There must be more than that.
And then they eventually say, so what's the return? Show me exactly what I'm going to get for this investment in marketing. And if you go back 3-4 years ago, we're going to get some brand equity out of it. I mean, you know, just the big fluffy, hey, we got a couple more thousand likes on Facebook, right? What does that get you? Now with the analytics and what we're able to track down to the individual to figure out who's engaging, why, sentiment analysis, what they feel about your brand, are you moving that needle in the right direction? You can quantify the investment that you're asking for. So in many cases, those conversations are becoming easier. At the same time, it's harder to hide if you don't have a very good marketing plan, because the data is going to show it's not returning the investment. So I see that as a compliment. I don't see it as a threat.
Makes sense. You talk about also the creative part of marketing, thinking about technology. If I think about Watson, I think artificial intelligence. What would be the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk if you look at artificial intelligence from a marketer's perspective?
Well, it's not man versus machine or woman versus machine. I see this as an opportunity to scale what we can do well today and focus on things that, you know, machines can't do. I mean, we were having dinner last night and we were talking about this idea of the Chef Watson. And so there actually is a Chef Watson. He actually has a cookbook. Now, I'll be honest, there are some things that Chef Watson has recommended that taste awful. But what it's doing is it's starting to stretch the boundaries of cuisine. It's thinking, in some cases, at the molecular and biology level of food interaction. And it's starting to explore new combinations that could be fascinating. But at the end of the day, it's still the chef that's got to decide how it's prepared, at what temperature, how much to put in what ingredient, how it presents on the plate, because that's just as important. At the end of the day, does it taste, you know, amazing, and does it represent the creativity of the chef? Because that is an extension of them as a professional. So I see it as starting to expand the art of the possible, but it's still the art at the end of it. It's the chef. That's just one example.
So brings me to the next question and the next topic. Marketing, in the end, is it art or science? We might want to ask the audience. So raise of hands, who thinks, and it's black or white, apologize, who thinks marketing is more art than science? A very minority. So do I assume correctly that the rest thinks it's pure science? So which is it? Which is it?
Well, I know we're going to have varying opinions, and you know, I hate to disappoint, but I'll give you the classic consulting answer. It depends, right? But there's going to be parts of what your team does that is becoming very much a science. And as I said before about, validating budgets and returning, an investment and proving that you can with data, that's a good thing. But, an algorithm is not going to tell you how to connect with your customers. An algorithm is not going, it'll help you maybe predict certain times and places and scenarios that are more conducive, like when you bought a bike and now you are open to accessories around the bike, not another bike. So it could give you that, but it still doesn't tell me necessarily enough about you and what you really are looking for, what excites you, what level of biker you are. So there's an engagement, and we have to start thinking about those scenarios, and that's going to involve some creativity, not to mention, how do I think about the best way to reach you? I'm not trying to fill your inbox with, ads. I'm trying to think about inspiring you when and where you are ready for that message. And that's not a playbook. That's not just a list you pull from. That's something we have to create and brainstorm on.
Yeah, Richard?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'd actually go one step further. I see technology and an algorithm actually inspiring the creativity piece. So if you think of the concept of an infinity loop, things just going around and around like that. So you've got the data and the insight that you're getting that's programmatically driven, or from your data management platform where you've overlaid your first-party data with second-party data, and you really start to understand the individual or the groups of individuals. That's giving you a huge amount of insight that feeds into that creative process. So in any advertising campaign ever, let me rephrase that, any good advertising campaign ever, there's been data that has underpinned the decision for the creative. Today, we just have a lot more data and insight that we can manipulate very quickly through analytics packages. We also have a very good one. That means you can really draw out that insight. So you use the insight into the creative process. You then use the technology and the algorithms to then push those messages in real time to the individuals that you want to. And you can have dynamic creative or whatever else it is in the, whatever channel. Then you come around the other side of the loop and you're learning from that interaction. So did that person open that email? Did they read that article? Did they watch that video? And in real time, that's plugging back into that whole creative process to take that person on their customized journey again. So I think data, algorithms, and technology can really enhance that creative process. That means that us as consumers actually have a better experience.
So let's, final question to you. Where do you see this new role of marketing being supported by technology? Where do you see this heading?
I think the things that have just come up here, so is it art or science? Yes. Internet of Things, all of the things we've been talking about for the past few minutes are forcing a rethink of how we structure our marketing organizations. I think in the past we've been siloed. So we've had the web marketing team, we've had the email marketing team, the events marketing team. And this new world is forcing us to think about the skills that we need on the team to be able to have that seamless omni-channel, multi-channel conversation with our customers. What I hear a lot when I speak to marketing leaders is, and this came up earlier this morning, is that they're struggling to find the digital marketing skills that they need, and that's the biggest challenge for CMOs out there. So what we're doing to adapt to that is, I guess, upskilling current members of the team and giving people more horizontal focus. So moving from that siloed-based communication strategy to something that's a lot more horizontal. And I think that presents a great opportunity for us as marketers to move from a specialism that we might have to have a much broader skill set in terms of having a much deeper conversation across all of the channels with our customers. So it's an exciting time.
Okay. So any final comments from the panel? Maybe 30 seconds wrap up. Scott?
I would just reiterate, as I think you put it so well at the beginning, and advice to yourself: be curious. I mean, the landscape, as Liz said, is changing so quickly. So you need to be willing to throw away your previous kind of beliefs and in many ways, what you described as or defined as success and best practice, they're going to constantly get redefined, and even at a monthly level. That's how fast this is changing. So stay open and make sure your team has this culture of it's okay to fail quickly, learn from it, keep moving. All right, you're never going to get it perfect, but you've got to have that kind of open dialogue with your teams.
Yeah, digital transformation is this phrase that's being bandied about that I think is very scary to a lot of people. Don't be scared. It's not that hard. Bite off a chunk at a time and address it, be it personalization, behavior-based marketing, omnichannel, whatever it might be. Take a piece, focus on that, get that, and then move on to the next. We have to go there. We have to go there to survive. But I think it's an amazing time to be a marketer. I think there's huge opportunity for us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Finally, it's always worse to come last when the guys have given you great ideas. Mine would simply be, don't necessarily chase the latest, shiny, new thing to do. Make sure you've got a foundation in place around your data and your strategy and your customer-centric approach, and do that really, really well. Test and learn, fail and fail fast, but take the learnings from that, I think, are all very sensible things.
Okay, thank you. So for the audience, you are available at the booth of House of Marketing during lunch, so between 12 and 2. So if there would be any individual questions or you want to talk to the panel members, you're always welcome to join. I have two of my great colleagues, Sophie and Carolyn, who will be giving also a presentation during the lunch talk at stage 2 at 2 p.m. And they will take this topic to the next level. They will talk about how to give away free fridges, so the connected fridge, for example. They will talk about future of marketing and organization change in general. So thanks again for joining. Have a great remainder of the day, and obviously to everybody, enjoy the break.